Alright, hello again, this is Jeff Scott. I'm discussing HTML5 and CSS3 from the courtesy of the Murox HTML5 and CSS3 3rd edition. We're on Chapter 19, How to Deploy a Website on a Web Server. So I'm just going to get started. Now there's a few things that are going to be in here that I'm going to mention that are not in the chapter. So you'll know when we get there. So we want to be able to deploy a website to a web server that has internet access. Get your website into the major search engines and directories. Explain how to get a web host and a domain name. Describe the use of an FTP program for transferring files to and from a website on a server. Describe the process of testing a website after it's been deployed. Describe the process for getting your website into search engines and directories. Describe 2 ways to control which pages on your site are indexed. Alright, so here's an example of a web host. And you want an even better example? In fact, I'll give you a couple of them. One or two you may or may not have already even seen. Alright, we don't need this, so let's go to GoDaddy.com. That's a provider. People ask me, or people have asked me, they said, I can get this for a really good price. And, some like unbelievably good deals. I've got a friend who's in a band, and their band wanted to create a website. So he went out to GoDaddy.com, didn't really read all the stuff in a lot of detail, and signed up for a plan they had 5 years for $300. That doesn't sound bad. That's $60 a year. So what, $5 a month, right? That doesn't sound really bad. Okay? But there were a couple things. First of all, you were limited on the plan that they had to 3 web pages. If you wanted more web pages, you had to buy more space, and there were other charges. That was the first thing. The second thing, and it doesn't really have to do with GoDaddy, but I knew the guy, and I knew that the band that he was in, and I knew some of the people in the band, and I knew that there was some volatility in there. Long story short, the band, after about a year, broke up. So he still had the site, but he didn't have a band for the site anymore. All right? So you've got to watch, and you've got to read the fine-tuning. I'm not going to say anything about GoDaddy. I've never really used it. All right? One I have used has been Bluehost. And you'll see a blue alligator come up here. Oh, it looks a little more professional than it used to, because it used to be an alligator. But I used to have an account on here for a class that I took. I had to get an account. The price is fairly reasonable. All right. There are other places that you can go to now, just as well. Let's assume for a second that I wanted to see whether or not I wanted to create a site, and I'm a little vain, let's say, so I want to see if http://www.jeffreypaulscott.com is available. It says it can't be reached, so normally what that says is that's probably going to be an available site. You have to watch it, because there are sites that you can go out to where you can put in a domain name to see whether or not it's available. Well, that's a good idea, right? Well, if you already have some kind of an idea of what you're going to call your site, what you might want to do is you might want to purchase the domain name, because people sometimes sit on domain names. There might, if I go out to one of those, there are people that check those sites to see what names people have asked for. All right? And then if I come back and want Jeffrey Paul Scott, it might say that somebody else already has it, but I can buy it for a price. The best thing, and it's not exactly the same thing, but I wanted to mention this to you, unless it's changed. If you go out to jebbush.com, unless this has changed, I thought it was Jeb Bush. Let's see. Facebook, etc. Jeb 2016. I don't know if that's the one. No, I guess not. For a while, maybe I've got the wrong name. But what happened was, I think it was jebbush.com. He actually let his domain name expire, and I found this funny. Donald Trump bought it. So for a while, when you went out to the site, it pushed you off the Donald Trump site. All right. All right. With that in mind, let's just bang through some of the stuff that's in here. So I just mentioned to you there are several web hosts. All right, and by and large, most of them are pretty good. What differentiates them one from the other is how much space you get, whether or not you're using a dedicated server or you're sharing space on a server, what you pay per month, how many can you make subdomains, how many email accounts, etc. do you get? So again, you can go in and search. So if I went out to networksolutions.com and I put in muroc.com, it would say that it's already being used because that's Muroc's site. Okay. Now, one way that you can get information, you can sit and develop your web page and you can put everything on your own local machine. Then you can use Filezilla after you've bought a site. But you're not even going to have to do that. And I want to show you what I mean. All right, I'm going to show you some stuff. This is some of the work that people last year had done, some of my second year students. We're very fortunate at Blackhawk to have a lab assistant named John Wanda, who is very, I'm trying to think of the right word for this because it is meant to be very complimentary. John does a very good job of having foresight and thinking about stuff in advance. And he went out and found a company out there that's called Site 5. All right? And they have web hosting. All right, so it's another web hosting place. But he got it set up for the school. And I shouldn't say for the school, for this program. So, for instance, I have a student who graduated in May. He's already working full-time at Foremost Media. His name is Micah Sawyer. So if I go out to msawyer.btcwsd for Blackhawk Technical College website developer.com, I get to Micah's page. So here's stuff that he has created. All right. These are pages that he created himself. I'm looking here. I don't remember. I'll probably screw it up, but I thought it was BTC-Uber. It's not. All right. It's not there either. All right. I'm going to show you a couple more of these, though. So that's Micah's stuff. All right, so I'm going to go now over to another guy who was working for, it's eLarson 9, I'm sorry, Eric Larson. elarson9.btcwsd.com. I don't want that. And here's something that Eric created. All right. I've got another student, Robert Peterson, who graduated. These are all people who graduated this past May. And he's Robert Peterson 4, so I've got to remember to put the whole thing in there. .btcwsd.com. And this is some of the stuff that he's done. All right. There's one site. If I back up, loan, I don't know what that is. Oh, this is another site that he did. So there's a bunch of stuff on there. The bottom line is this. You are going to have web space. All right, I've even got one of these. I haven't done a darn thing with it, but I can go out to jscott.btcwsd.com And that's mine. No, it shouldn't be saying sorry. As far as I know, that's mine. Let's double check. No, let's not. Let's try our lab assistant John's JWANDA.btcwsd.com. See if John's got anything out there. It says that he doesn't either. And I'll try a couple more students, the ones I know that graduated. Amber Underhill, who is also working at Foremost Media, .btcwsdd.e.com. And here's a site that she did. It's got full video in it and a bunch of other stuff. All right. A couple students who are still here at Blackhawk who haven't graduated yet. Mike Rates. Here's one that he did. And there are other ones. The point is, you are all going to have an account that's going to have your login .btcwsd.com. By the time you see these videos, you should already have that account. All right, it should be up and active and ready for you to use. Now, you're still going to have to use a product like Filezilla to move your stuff over there. All right? And when you use Filezilla, typically what happens, and this is one way of doing it, but there's other products too. In fact, what you're doing is you're transferring files over from your machine to the web server that holds the Site 5 stuff. All right? Some people like Filezilla. Some people find it a little hard to use. I don't think it's difficult. There are other things that you can use. I've used Qt FTP, for example, which I find very easy to use. It splits your screen in two. And on the left-hand side are all the files that you want to move, and on the right-hand side is where you want to move them to. But John will go through this with you. He'll have you connect. I want all this stuff to be done. And can I show you? It's not that I can't. This is the kind of thing I want to show you when you connect it to a web host. So this is your stuff on your C drive. This is the stuff that's actually out there on the web server itself. So you're going to move stuff from one to the other. Until you get a website that's on the internet. All right? So, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything that's in the book. A web host or web hosting service provides space on a server that's connected to the internet, usually for a monthly fee. You use a file transfer protocol such as Filezilla.com to transfer files for your website to and from your web host. An ISP or internet service provider often includes free web hosting. It may or may not. For domain names, a domain name is a user-friendly name that's used to locate a resource that's connected to the internet. For example, google.com. A domain name can have one or more subdomains. For example, mail.google.com is a subdomain. The .com, .net, .org, .edu, etc. are popular endings or extensions for domain names. Typically for commercial websites, you use .com. For networking infrastructure websites, you use .net. For education, you use .edu. The White House, for example, is a .gov, etc. The Domain Registry, or Domain Name Registry, is a database of all registered domain names. If you're going to be using a web hosting service, you can often use that service to register the domain for you. Some people recommend that you use a different one. It's all a matter of preference. Filezilla, which we've been looking at a little bit right now, if you want to download it yourself on your own machine, it will be there in XAMPP, but if you want it on your own machine, you go to www.filezilla-project.org and you click on the download link. And you should be able to just follow the instructions. Filezilla is an example of a free FTP client that runs on virtually all platforms. It supports FTP and a lot of different types. Again, it's on XAMPP, and you should be able to use that to do your stuff for your Site 5 stuff. Connecting to a website, you start Filezilla, you use the File Site Manager command to display the Site Manager dialog box. You click the New Site button, enter a name for the site, enter the details, including host name, username, and password, and click the Connect button. Once you go through all this stuff, again, it's going to be something like this. In here, the top left pane shows the folder structure for your local system. The top right pane, again, the top left pane and the top right pane there shows the folder structure of the remote system. Okay? If you select a folder in either one of these, they're going to be displayed, and you'll be able to move stuff back and forth basically. When you upload a file, you're taking it from a local site to a remote site. When you download, you're taking it from the remote site back to the local site. You can also upload and download multiple files by selecting them and using the upload and download commands. All right. A few more skills that you should be at least familiar with. You should know how to test a website that's been uploaded to a web server. To do that, you start your browser, you go to your home page, and you navigate to the new page using every route that your site has for getting there. What you want to do when you're testing the website is you want to be able to test every feature. You want to make sure there are no broken links. So in other words, where you hyperlink someplace and it goes nowhere. You want to test your images and see how they look in different browsers, different versions of different browsers. You want to test any JavaScript features that you've added. Accordions, slideshows, carousels, etc. Same thing with jQuery features. You want to test every link on the page, and again, you want to test it in every kind of browser or simulator that you can get a hold of. This is very methodical because you've got to run through the same kinds of tests, one page at a time, usually one browser at a time. So when you do this, quite often what you'll want to do is to write some kind of a test plan up so you can follow it. All right? You want to do this for each and every browser that your user could possibly want to be using. And these are the steps right here. It's pretty much what I just mentioned to you. All right. How to test a new website. Now, that's what we've still been talking about. So here's the URLs for the major search engines. So in other words, how do I get myself onto Google? Well, after you've deployed your site onto your own server and you've tested the heck out of it, you're going to want to submit your site to, at a minimum, Google and Bing, maybe Google, Bing, and Yahoo, maybe even other ones. To submit your site to these major search engines, you go to the websites in the table that's shown right here. When you submit your site to a search engine, you need only to provide the URL for your home page. Then what happens is the site itself, sometime between the time you make a request and the next 2 or 3 weeks after that, will do what's called spidering your site. What it does is it'll go through every page on your site to make sure, and it'll look for meta tags and other information, and it's going to want to make sure that everything you say your site does, it does. After your site has been indexed the first time, the robot will periodically crawl through it again based on that to see any changes that you've made. Each search engine has its own mechanism for doing this. So the way Bing does it is different than the way Yahoo does it. And there are no books that you can buy or websites that you can look at because supposedly it's kind of like the secret sauce that you have at a Big Mac. The formulas are also supposedly secret. Since Yahoo is now part of the Bing network, all right, it means that searches that you run from Yahoo are now basically done with Bing. So you don't have to go to Yahoo. Okay? So I'll stand or sit corrected on that. When you go and create these files too, when you do this, you can create this file, this robots.txt file. What you can put in there are any pages on your site you don't want the spider to go through. And typically those would be private pages or ones that you would never show to the public, admin pages, etc. And that's the command that you'd put in then. All right, how to control which pages are indexed and visited. How to control which pages are indexed. Again, if you don't want the robot to index a page, you can add it to your robots.txt file. Another way you can do it is to add a robots meta tag to the page. And that's that no index that I just showed you. Okay? How to control which pages are visited from the search results. When you delete a page from the website, it remains in the index and until the engine crawls through it again, and it might even be in there longer than that. To prevent users from going to a page you've deleted, you can delete the content of the page but not the page itself. Then you can add a refresh meta tag to the page where basically you kind of do a redirect and send them someplace else. All right. Finally, how to maintain a healthy website. Well, here's an example of Google Webmaster Tools that you can look at. There are a number of free and commercial-based, web-based tools you can use to check the health, so to speak, of your website. The Google Webmaster Tools are probably among the most popular because they're free, they're good, they analyze and report on things like your site's search appearance, their traffic, statistics, crawl statistics, so what pages are people visiting the most, security issues, etc. There's a commercial service that's called Site Improve. All right? You can see it right here. And with Site Improve, it's used typically for larger websites. It checks for accessibility and SEO issues. It'll report spelling errors, broken links, downtime, etc. HubSpot's Marketing Grader is a free tool that you can use that will report on your website's social media presence, blog activity, email marketing campaigns, and mobile responsiveness. Finally, the last ones that are in here, Nibbler, FreeGrader, and WooRank provide free scores on accessibility, user experience, marketing and technology, and suggestions for improvement. All right. So if you understand what's in this chapter, you can make your website available to anyone in the world who's connected to the internet. Okay? That's pretty much it for this chapter.